Hello everyone, I decided to make a little video because lots and lots of people have been asking for more information about my post yesterday regarding my stent surgery, or stent procedure I suppose. Some people knew it was going to happen and lots of people didn't. I had decided specifically to sort of keep things quiet. I didn't want a lot of people worrying in the same way as I was, but I just wanted to share a few more details because there's some important stuff that I think there should be more awareness of that might affect you yourself. Hopefully it won't, but I do think it's important to share. If you don't want to watch the whole video, the basic takeaway is I used to have a very unhealthy lifestyle, and that also I was not helped by the fact that I have a genetic condition that means I have high cholesterol. So even if I had a healthy lifestyle throughout my 20s and early 30s, I still would have had high cholesterol. That's the important bit. And because of that high cholesterol really from childhood, that has led or did lead to a very significant blockage in my right cardiac artery, which luckily was found on a scan for other reasons, related reasons, but basically it was found before I had any kind of a heart attack. I essentially had no symptoms, so completely no clue. I was running marathons and all sorts, so very, very lucky that it was found and dealt with very quickly on the NHS, and I should be back right as rain. Because I've already overhauled my lifestyle and I consider myself to be really quite healthy now. I thought I was in the best shape of my life before this, but that's another story. I don't really have to, I just have to carry on doing what I'm doing. That's my best chance of keeping myself healthy in the future. But the long and short of it is that if you don't know your own cholesterol, get it tested. If your cholesterol was high for whatever reason, maybe it's under control of statins now, speak to your healthcare provider about whether there is any possible increased risk of developing heart disease, and also whether it might be advisable for you to go for a CT scan at the Ulster Hospital if I think most people watching this are going to be here in Northern Ireland. And also, if you have never had your cholesterol tested but you think you're really largely very healthy and so on, but maybe say your dad has high cholesterol, but you think, I'm in my 20s, I'm healthy, I live a healthy lifestyle, I don't know what my cholesterol is, but it couldn't possibly be high. Just be aware that there is a condition called Familial Hypercholesterolemia, which is a genetic condition, which means that despite all the other, you could be on a bread and water diet and your cholesterol could still be high. And apparently it's 1 in 250 of the UK population have this condition. So I was surprised at that statistic when I looked it up this morning. So you might want to just be aware. So that's the general takeaway. But sort of a bit more detail. For those who sort of don't know me, I'm 43 now. I turned 43 just back in December there. I really throughout my 20s and early to mid 30s, up until I was 30, I smoked. So I smoked really from about 18, until about the age of 30. I did not eat very well, a lot of processed food, takeaways, other crap. Like a lot of people that sort of age and everything, I drank more than I should have done, sometimes binge drinking, sometimes just more of a background level of, having a wee drink every night kind of thing. Self-employed, but in a very stressful profession, which meant that stress was an issue. I didn't handle it very well. And I didn't exercise or anything like that. So by the time I was about 36, 37, I was over 17 stone. That's 5 stone heavier than I am now. If it helps. That's 31 kilos heavier or 70 pounds heavier. So it was around that time, around 36-ish and towards 37, and I was aware I had had shingles actually as well, which give you a bit of a clue. A healthy person in the mid-30s should not get shingles. I had a problem with my lower back. I had repetitive strain injury in this arm because I'm left-handed and I work with computers, and I just kind of felt like crap, so I decided I would start to get sort of healthy. I should step back a little bit. When I was around 33, I was contacted to say that they had identified the gene that gives you high cholesterol, this familial hypercholesterolemia. That they'd identified that in a family member, and that I should come in for testing. So at this stage, at 33, I had never had my cholesterol tested. I went into the Royal and attended the clinic there, and they tested my cholesterol and they tested for the genetic condition. So the condition came back positive, and they told me my cholesterol was 9.7. Now, if you don't know what that means, generally American figures, Americans read it slightly differently, but in the UK, my cholesterol essentially was 9.7. They like it to be under 5. There's 3 or 4 figures within that, but the sort of the overall sort of ratio thing is below 5. Ideally, as I said, mine was 9.7 at 33, and would have been high probably for quite some time. Most people's cholesterol it builds up over years and years and years, but with familial hypercholesterolemia, your cholesterol is high essentially from birth. So I had that for quite a while. That was fine in a way. I was put on to statins. Now, I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, statins are evil, big pharma. My own experience, bollocks. I've been on a low dose of statins for 10 years and have had no side effects whatsoever. Without them, I probably would have had a fatal heart attack by now. Quite simple as that. Yes, people do sometimes have side effects, but there are various different types. And it depends on the dose that you're on. I'm on a low dose. They put me on a low dose initially. My cholesterol sort of came down to, low dose initially, see a consultant once a year. And I thought he was just, oh God, would you stop going on? Surely it couldn't be that bad. My cholesterol's 5.5, and thankfully, he kept sort of drilling on, no, we want to get it down. So 5.5ish, and then it came down to, I think, just sort of below 5 or so, and he was sort of my attitude at the time was he still wasn't happy. He wanted it below 4. As he said, then there was a theory that if your levels of good cholesterol were higher, that it could help possibly undo some of the furring of the arteries that may have occurred. Don't really know. It's not an exact science, but that was fine. I had got it in around that stage, and he was happier, but still not 100% happy. So at that stage then I took it on myself, realised, as I said before, really not very happy with my health, mental health and physical health. Started to sort of work on that really from about the age of 36, and started to lose weight and walk and change my diet a bit and go to the gym and so on and so on and so on. More of that in a minute. But that's then started me on a track of really, as I jokingly called it at the time, fit for 40. So I started walking, which helped my core strength and my lower back, and got rid of my really severe back problems. Got rid of that. Got treatment for the RSI. I lost, as I say, 5 stone, which made a huge difference. I had already long since given up smoking, but that would have been a contributory factor during my 20s as well. Smoking is a huge factor. I then, sort of between sort of now and then, essentially lost 5 stone. I am now the best fit for my diet would be flexitarian, in that I largely prefer vegetarian, and that's largely what I would try and sort of cook at home. I don't mind eating meat occasionally. I just don't make it a sole focus. It's once in a while now, as opposed to every evening meal used to be meat. So flexitarian sounds a bit wanky, but it's probably the best fit for my diet. I stopped drinking alcohol completely 3 years ago. Complete mindset change. Anybody who's interested in that, by the way, you can talk to me separately. It was not difficult. Once you make the click in your mind, there's a fantastic book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and by the time I got to the end of the book, I never wanted another drink, and I don't, and I haven't had one, and I don't miss it, and it's the best thing I ever did. So that has had a really good effect on triglycerides, which is a sub bit of your cholesterol reading as well, so that's all to the good as well. Exercise, as I say, I started going to the gym, started doing yoga. I've been doing yoga now for 3 years with the excellent Gail and Graham Keenan over in Live Love Yoga in Bangor. Beginner's class, had no idea where to start, and it's an absolute integral part of my life now. I took up mindfulness meditation practices, ecstatic dance, 5 rhythms, which has been transformational for my own mental health, attitude, the way I see life, and has given me fantastic tools for managing stress, because we all have stress, it always happens, but I can frame it now sort of in a different way and everything else, and I like to think that I am a much more easygoing, calmer person than I used to be, and a happier person. Already mentioned smoking when I was mentioning drink. Yes, lost the weight. Exercise then, yeah, I mean, going to the gym and stuff as well, but the main thing then was running. I started running very, very late in 2016, and just about 3 years ago then, beginning of 2017, I took that up sort of quite seriously, set myself a goal of the Belfast Half Marathon in September 2017. So with the help of a very good friend, Andrea Harrower, I started running, got a training plan, started running, built up the distances and everything else, did a half marathon, absolutely loved it, committed to doing a full marathon. Now, so this is where finally the relevant story starts to sort of kick in. That's all been background. So whenever I was going, the plan was for the first marathon was going to be Dublin in September 2018. Rather than try and do a spring marathon, which meant training over the winter, which for the first time would have been horrible. So it also gave me plenty of time. So I, out of the winter, began running back to sort of half marathon status, which again was a really, really fantastic thing for mental health. I lost my mum suddenly in January 2018, and running was so important for helping me get through that, as well as other stuff that I've mentioned. So we got to the half marathon stage, and then I decided then, right, okay, there's the next bit of the plan now, the final push over the summer of 2018 to get to marathon stage, and that's where, there's a whole other load on your body. And went to see the GP, said, look, I just want a general health check. So she checked, and she said, yeah, your blood pressure's fine, everything seems good, so on and so on. By this stage I should say as well, my cholesterol was down to 3.6, and all of the other sort of sub figures were all very good. The consultant, Dr. Trinick, was really happy. He said, great, you've lost loads of weight and stuff. He said, just keep doing what you're doing, that's really, really good. So I went to the GP. She said my blood pressure was fine, everything seemed fine, had to listen to my heart. Resting heart rate of 48, which for a 42 year old, 42 year old, put me into very fit, athletic category, and I felt it. My half marathon times and everything were very good. So she said, I do hear though a very slight murmur on your heart. She's now, it's probably what we call an innocent murmur, which means it's not caused by a defect in the heart. It's just I'm not sure exactly what caused it, but if your heart's very fit, you can still hear what sounds like a murmur. But she said, given what you're going to do, I would advise you to get that checked out now. It would have taken quite a while to get a scan done for that in the NHS, so I bit the bullet. I think it was about £220 I paid to Kingsbridge in Lisburn Road in Belfast, and they did an echo scan. So the girl went through all of that, did an ECG as well, and came back and said, yeah, structure of your heart's all really good, everything's fine, nothing to worry about with that. So that was all right. I can't remember whether it was before or after the marathon, but I happened to then just see the consultant about my cholesterol again as usual. He saw the readings, checked everything was all right and so on. And I did wonder, what is the point? I've kind of got this under control. What's the point in sort of going to see him? But I think it's just from their point of view, they just make sure that you haven't slipped. So I mentioned to him about, oh, by the way, I've got this scan done and so on and so on. And he went, oh, right, oh, very good. And he said, did you ever get a CT scan done? And I said, no. And I wasn't really sure the difference. And the CT scan is where they inject dye into, and it's they do like they can basically see through this dye the blood flow through your arteries, and they can tell whether the flow is restricted or not. So he said, there's a scanner at the Ulster Hospital now sort of for that, and he said we'll put you on the list for that. It would be good to have. I've looked this up since, and apparently it's the first first CT scanner dedicated to like cardiac diagnosis, where rather than putting you through treadmill tests and all this other sort of stuff, they can just stick you in the scanner and see what's going on. But obviously there's a waiting list. The NHS is underfunded. The NHS is fantastic, but obviously there are bits of it that aren't perfect, just through underfunding and so on. But he said, well, it would be good to get that. He said, because that would be the key one for us. It would tell us whether there's any restrictions. And I assume he was working on the fact that I was running with no issues, had no symptoms and everything else, that largely if I did have any furring, that it wasn't significant. So I honestly forgot all about that. Did Dublin Marathon, did Belfast Marathon then in spring 2019. Both of my marathon times I'm very pleased with, just over 4 hours, like 4 hours 12 thereabouts. Although I always thought I would have liked to have gotten sub 4 hour, but so yeah, so good, reasonable marathon times I'm very happy with, and absolutely no discomfort. Honestly, no discomfort whatsoever during running. The only thing that would make me sort of stop, is just sort of getting out of breath and going, what would feel like a normal, I can't run anymore, not sort of, my chest is sore, I can't run anymore, nothing out of the ordinary. The last big race I did, organised race I did, was Newton or Ards half marathon here where I live. That's a very hilly marathon. That was at the end of, I think, July. That was a very, very hilly marathon, and it was on a Friday night, and I remember we had 2 or 3 days of for Northern Ireland, freak weather, and it was like 24, 25 degrees at 6:30 at night when it started, and it's remained in the low to mid 20s for the 2 hours or so that I was running until the sun started to go down. But it was full sun, I remember as well. It was so hot, and that was the slowest half marathon I did, and I came in at just under 2 hours. And as I say, that was the reason I mentioned that, is not blowing my own trumpet, but because those were really quite a stressful thing to put your body through, and I had no inkling at all. So that was fine. Forgot all about this scan. End of October, got a phone call about, Mr. Macaulay, coming in for your CT scan, and I thought, what's this about? And she actually had to go off and come back and tell me. I completely forgotten about it. And I said, okay, so that's fine. Went in for the scan. They told me to be in all day, which I thought, oh great, but went in and they put a thingy in your arm to inject the dye and stuff, and you go in, and it's like a big polo mint that sort of goes over your upper chest, and you stick your head through and your arms up, and this thing whirs up and everything else, and then they inject a dye into your hand, and whenever they do that, they tell you that you will have a sensation of wetting yourself. Which you do. You get a warm flush as the dye goes through. So they did all that. That was fine. I'm sitting back, told I need to wait for the doctor to come around. So I sat and waited. I think it was about 3 hours. And I was ready to sort of say to him, can I just not go? Can I just go? You know, and he let me know if there's a problem or whatever. But I was then extremely surprised when the doctor came and told me that they had identified a severe blockage in my right cardiac artery. Now, you have your arteries that go up to your brain and the ones that go down your legs and so on, which is the blood flow around the body. But then your left and right cardiac arteries are the ones that actually make your heart pump. So if they get a blockage, then yeah, you get a heart attack. So I didn't really know what stents or anything were. He was talking about stents. I was thinking surgery opening up here and everything else. I was absolutely... He was quite... he was a very nice doctor. He was very upbeat. I couldn't understand why he was so upbeat, and I understand now. Because as he was saying, look, normally when I'm telling somebody this news, you would be sitting here feeling in a very bad way, maybe having severe symptoms, maybe having had a heart attack. I'd now be telling you, you need to lose a lot of weight, you need to take up exercise, you need to change your diet, you need to cut out takeaways, you need to stop drinking, and so on and so on. You know, and people think, oh my God, I've got to do all of this stuff. But I knew, and I told him that my lifestyle is, I consider my lifestyle to be very good and very healthy. I mean, I'll enjoy a nice greasy takeaway now and again and everything else, but by and large I thought, no, compared to what it used to be. So that's the one sort of saving thing. So yeah, he told me about that. I was utterly surprised. He actually said he couldn't explain why I had no symptoms whatsoever. They put me on blood thinners straight away, which again was kind of like alarming. I was told, obviously, don't be running, don't be going into the cold water. I swim or go into the sea here in Belfast Lough at least once a week with the Dash and Splash crew. Hello everyone. And that has become a really, really, really interesting, fun, important part of my life, is the cold water immersion. Using the Wim Hof method and the breathing to sort of get the immune system or the nervous system under control, and to enjoy my time in the cold water. I absolutely love it. So I was told I couldn't do that for obvious reasons, and kind of came home in a bit of a daze, really. They put me on blood thinners. They give you a little spray, and they said if you get any symptoms, you need to keep this with you at all times. They spray it under your tongue. And so that was sort of quite a shock. What they then did was an extra step, which apparently is quite a new thing. I think normally when they see a blockage they go, oh, stent, but they have a new thing now which they're bringing as a trial to the Ulster Hospital, where it added 2 weeks onto my waiting time because they sent my results to the States, which is at the time the only place that does it, where they analyse the readings or something, and they're able to determine how much of an impact, rather than just physically looking at the restriction, they're able to they're able to calculate how much of an impact it's actually having on the blood flow, rather than just going by a visual representation. So they wanted to test that, because I think if it turned out that the blockage looked bad but wasn't really having much of an effect, it would just be medication and monitoring. But mine came back and I was told, no, yours is severe. You need a stent, you need one pretty urgently. So I was advised that I was put onto the very urgent list, which was a waiting list of about 6 or 7 people, I think. So between sort of Christmas period and one thing and another, at this stage, this was beginning of November, I had no symptoms, so I was still in shock. I thought at the time that in the days after, I thought, no, this is psychosomatic, you're just imagining things here, But I had a very stressful week at work, very busy and very stressful week at work at the beginning of December. And there was no doubt at that stage then that I was definitely having symptoms. It manifested itself as like a tightness in the chest, sometimes a sharp pain, often breathlessness. If I was walking around, I would generally just plod along slowly as opposed to rushing about, because rushing about would make me get very breathless. Even sometimes coming up the stairs here at the house would leave me sort of holding on to the neural post, and not dangerously out of breath, but I just would make myself stop and rest for a few seconds. So there were very sort of things like that. So that was quite alarming. Oh my God, I've got these symptoms. So I had been referred to a cardiologist at that stage who was going to be doing the procedure. I actually made a private appointment to go and see him in order to advise that I had symptoms. I was then given angina medication to help give me some relief from those symptoms. We had a good long chat. I had lots of questions, so we had a good long chat about how I should keep myself healthy, ready for the procedure in January. So that was very useful. Then really took it easy over Christmas. I emailed, contacted a lot of my customers, told them what was happening, basically, so that people weren't just as maybe expecting just as much of a sort of a fast response, because I needed to keep the stress levels. Generally, the run up to Christmas can be very stressful because there's a deadline, and I think everybody was taking 2 weeks off this year. So the 2 weeks up to Christmas were quite quiet, which was good. I had 2 weeks off over Christmas, and then I had 1 week back, 6th of January, and I happened to phone in to say, look, I was advised waiting list wise it should be January at some point. I'm just checking, is that the case, so that I can have a rough plan for my work in January. And they said, we've got you on the phone, can you come in next Monday the 13th? So that was all a surprise. As I said, it all happened very quickly. So that was what happened yesterday, Monday. Today's Tuesday. I went into the Royal at 7:30. Now this bit's maybe useful for anybody who is going in to have a stent. It's obviously you're going to be nervous and stuff, but it's not. I had lots of people tell me, look, it's quite straightforward. Don't be too concerned. And I have to say honestly, it wasn't. Basically, what happened was I arrived at the hospital at 7:30. I was in a bed by 8. By 8:30 I had been given a sedative, which was so mild that I didn't really know whether I had been given it or not. I know they were putting a thing in my arm to inject the dye or things, and I heard something about sedatives, so I think a sedative went in. All I know is that I was quite calm, but not so much that I thought I've definitely been sedated. So that was sort of 9ish. By 9 they had me around to the theatre, and you get off the bed and you walk in, you lie down on the table. There's a big thing comes down on an arm, like a box that comes down and hovers above your chest, and they can move it about on an arm and angle it, I think, just to get your different positions. There's a big screen up here for the doctor to see. Lots of nurses and everything all about. Everybody introduced themselves, were all very friendly and very reassuring. So they then sort of screened me off and covered me with all anti-radiation stuff, and the arm was out like that. And then they'd said, right, okay, this is going to hurt for about, I think, 15 seconds, which was the injection into the arm to anaesthetize it. So really my arm went numb from the elbow down, the whole hand went numb. And then I wasn't sure, was there going to be like a great big sort of, right everybody, we're going to start? There wasn't. I was aware of them, obviously they were sort of doing stuff behind this screen. I couldn't really see the TV screen. I probably could have if I'd sort of craned my neck, but it wasn't designed for me to see. But I was aware then what I thought maybe was, like, I knew they ran this wire thing up and thought it felt like a coiled something being sort of set on my legs. So I assumed that was maybe the thing that was going to go up my vein, laid out. So I thought, they're getting ready. So that was okay. I'm lying there and I'm thinking, right, at some point now, have they started? Or are they going to start, or what? Because I couldn't really tell, because it was all medical speak what they were saying. And the next minute then I sort of felt, not in the slightest bit painful, I felt what felt like somebody do that very lightly, and I thought, they're already up my arm, and it happened quite quickly. It wasn't painful, it was like somebody just doing that, and that's what told me, oh shit, they're already in. So you can see here my wrist, this is where they went in. So they go up, the wire goes up and round and in, and then it has a balloon on the end of it, and the balloon it has a balloon on the end of it, and the stent is like a little, for any, if you don't know, the stent is like a little metal tube, but it's like a little mesh tube, so it's initially sort of like closed away down, it's like compacted in, and so they put that in and they get it inside of the blockage, and then they inflate the balloon, and the stent then expands with it, and pushes out the artery, squashes the blockage, and opens the artery out properly, and then they deflate the balloon and withdraw the whole thing, and the wire and everything comes back down. The stent stays in place and holds the artery open. So it is quite amazing, and some people have to get several done. I'm lucky only the one. The only bit that was mildly alarming was I think it was when they inflated the balloon. From reading about the procedure, they say that you can get a slight uncomfortableness when that happens, and all I knew is that I was lying there, and then I went like that, and I felt my heart just like that for a second, and they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm fine," but it was over just like that, and I thought, and again, you know, I didn't want to start chatting to them in the middle of it. I mean, I like to talk, but not that much, and so I assumed that that's, you know, what that was, that was that initial inflation of the balloon, and then presumably they then deflate it as quickly as possible, otherwise the artery is blocked obviously while the balloon is inflated. So that was okay, didn't feel anything coming out. A few minutes later, I think it took about 20 minutes altogether, maybe half an hour at most, I heard them saying, "Right, you're all done," and that was it. And so the screens all got pulled away and everything else, and the doctor came round and told me, he said, "Yeah," he says, "so we had that one blockage, it's been done, we've looked at your other artery and it's fine." He said, "There's a small amount of build-up on some of my other smaller blood vessels, which are too small to stent. Can't fit anything down those. So, but again, as we've spoken before, a stent doesn't stop you having a heart attack, your lifestyle stops you having a heart attack. So that's what I need to do going forward, is just carry on what I'm doing." But he showed me then on the screen a before and an after picture, which I wish I could have got copies of, but you could see very clearly the artery sort of coming down and dark with blood, and then you could see the restriction, and it was about 75% blocked, and then the lines below were more faded or you know, lighter, which meant that there was less blood flow in them. And then he showed me the after then, where just the restriction was gone and the lines were dark, and it was quite amazing. So I was wheeled back to the ward on a machine, observation, blood pressure and everything for I think 4 hours, bed rest for 6. So I was home, I was allowed to go home at 3:30. Honestly, the most uncomfortable bit of it was because they put you on blood thinners. I was on blood thinners from November, but they also give you like a big dose of them or something at the end of the procedure, I think, or anti-clotting agents or something, because that was like a big massive rush to the head as well. And they said, "No, that's fine, don't worry about that." But there's this clear plastic bracelet that's like inflated and with a wee thing off it. So because you're on blood thinners and your blood doesn't clot, and also because this is where the obviously there's a direct route up to the heart, it's an artery. So just so you can see how, I mean, it's a dot, it is just a dot really now. There's some bruising going to start. It's going to bruise really badly, because that's one of the side effects of blood thinners, is you do bruise really badly, but you know what, I can take that, I can live with that. But the pressure on that was uncomfortable. I mean, first world problems, it was uncomfortable, but it was probably the worst. That and them pulling the sensors off my chest hair and stuff were probably the most uncomfortable bits, honestly. So over 4 hours, then they slowly take the air out of this, because it's transparent, they can see whether it's bleeding or not. So they let it out, dressing for 24 hours. It's now to be left uncovered for 2 to 3 days. I can't do anything significant with this hand, like lifting anything heavy, anything that might flex it. If it starts to bleed, I've got to apply pressure, and if it doesn't stop bleeding within 5 minutes, I have to go call an ambulance, because they say you can bleed out. But I think, you know, as long as I take it easy, there's no reason why that shouldn't be a problem. As I say, it's gonna bruise really badly, but I almost expected there to be like a little cut or stitches there, but I'm quite amazed at how small a dot it is. So yeah, so essentially that was it. I'm still on all the same medication for the time being. I'll be on a daily aspirin for the rest of my life, no hardship. I'm on another blood thinner, clopidogrel, which I will take for 6 months. Used to be you had to take a blood thinner like that for the rest of your life as well after a stent, but the new stents, well, relatively new stents that they put in now, are coated in an anticoagulant to so that the body doesn't attack it and the blood doesn't clot on the stent itself. So that's another amazing thing. So yes, we'll do the blood thinners and so on. I'm on the angina tablets just until the next review, but I should be able to come off those today. Didn't sleep that well last night. I think yesterday was a very early start. It was a long day. I did go to sleep when I got home, and I think early evening I had a couple of hours sleep, and I think that's what interrupted my sleep last night. But I feel largely sort of okay. I do still have some very slight symptoms here. Partly it's psychological, I think. So I've got a week off work. Well, I've taken a week off work. I can't drive for a week anyway. And I was told by the doctor yesterday that provided once the week's over, if I feel well enough, I can ease back into the exercise and the cold water and everything else just as soon as I want to. I thought maybe there'd be like a 4 to 6 week period or whatever, I don't know, but no, he said no. He says if you feel well enough, go ahead. So obviously I won't. I've been out of the running now for a while because I actually had a bit of a bug for a few weeks before the scan, so I haven't run. No, sorry, I ran, was it the morning before the scan or the morning of the scan? I can't remember, but prior to that I'd been out of action for a few weeks as well, so I've done very, very little running this last several months. So I'm obviously not going to start straight back into that. I'm going to start, sort of fast walking and slowly ease myself back into it, ramp up the activity. I've been told no reason not to do marathons again, which is great news. So really, yeah, it's not like a case of, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that anymore. So I'm extremely lucky, and I bloody well know it. And again, for anybody who's not here in the UK, you maybe hear things, I know particularly in the States, stuff about the NHS, and I think there was some crap about death panels and everything else. But the NHS may not be perfect, but by fuck, I mean, I don't know how much. If anybody knows, tell me how much a stent costs in the US, please, if you're paying for it yourself. Because essentially, okay, I pay my taxes towards the NHS, but this didn't cost me anything. I did have one. I did have the private echo scan because I didn't want to wait for that. That was 220 quid, and I did pay 180 to the cardiac consultant to see him at the beginning of December because I wanted to see him, set my mind at rest, ask questions, and I wanted to let him know that I'd developed symptoms. I could just as easily have gone to my local GP and been given the same angina meds for that for free, but I thought, do you know what, I would rather spend the money and go and see the consultant. But other than that, I mean, I don't know how many thousands a stent would run to on a day in hospital. So I'm truly, truly, truly grateful to the NHS and the staff in the Royal who were professional, friendly, really just, the experience was as good as it possibly could be. So I would say to anybody, if ever you or a family member, if something happens and somebody gets told, oh, you should go in for a stent or whatever it is, yeah, it's normal to be a bit alarmed, but the actual experience itself is really, it's really not that horrible, thank God. And then yeah, really with regards to cholesterol and stuff, check and see, find out what yours is, and if yours is high or family members is high, don't ask your doctor about familial hypercholesterolemia, because I've had a couple of people who sort of said to me, oh yeah, well I don't know what mine is, but my dad has very high cholesterol and they've never been able to get it under control. He's tried eating or tried changing his diet and stuff, but it's still high. And I'm thinking, well, there's a reason why that might be still high. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to say really. I'm trying to think. I think that probably answers most people's questions, probably in far, far, far more detail than anybody ever wanted. So if you're still here, bloody well done. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Hope that answers your questions. I am now going to go and do probably very little. Just really, yeah, I don't have an awful lot to do this week, so hence the reason why I've sat and talked to you for the last God knows how long. It's probably 20 minutes or something. But I'll go and upload this to YouTube now and then sort of share it and stuff. So there we go. That's the whole story for those who wanted to know. So thanks for watching, and keep well, look after yourselves, and get your numbers checked and make sure you know, get yourself sorted. And if anybody does find anything out and wants to talk, just reach out, and or again, family members, if you know a family member and anybody's really concerned or upset or anything like that, if you think it will help, I'm happy to talk to anybody about my experience and reassure them. So hopefully I'll be doing marathons again, I'll be doing races again later on this year, and I will set myself. I've deferred my entry to Belfast Marathon in the spring. It's the 5th of May. If I was a nut, I could probably still do that, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to take the spring and the summer to slowly get myself back to where I wanted to be. There's a psychological aspect, obviously, to running as well. I do still feel a bit fragile. You know, it'll take a little while for me to convince myself that I'm not going to fall over. Excuse me. So yeah, so you know where I am. So thanks for watching. Bye.